The first sound was the sharp click of her heels outside the door, a rhythm I'd grown to loathe more than anything. Not for the sound itself, but for what it signaled. She was coming back. Back from whatever client dinner, networking event, or late-night meeting she'd used as her alibi this time. I didn't move. I just sat there, sunk into the couch, the room dim except for the faint glow of the hallway lamp behind me, her phone warm in my hand. It was unlocked. Not because she trusted me, but because she'd gotten careless. Amanda used to be meticulous. The kind of woman who triple-checked the locks, who cleared her browser history after reading a recipe. But not anymore. Maybe she thought I'd never catch on. Maybe she didn't care if I did. The door opened. She stepped inside, silent. No surprise in her eyes when she saw me. Her coat still buttoned tight, black gloves dangling from one hand, a takeout bag in the other. Her hair perfect, every wave in place. Makeup still flawless, like she'd stepped out of an ad, even though it was nearly midnight. "Hey," she said, breezy, like this was any other night. Like I wasn't sitting there, holding the digital wreckage of everything she'd torched. I didn't answer, just turned the phone toward her. The message still lit up the screen. Her gaze didn't flinch, didn't widen, didn't even twitch. Nathan's words stared back at both of us. Sent at 3:27 a.m., 2 nights ago, when she was in Chicago for a conference. "You fell asleep on my chest. I can still smell your perfume on my sheets. Don't go quiet on me now. I miss you already." Amanda let out a slow, annoyed breath, setting the takeout on the table like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Then she finally met my eyes. "Are we really doing this right now?" she asked. There was that tone, detached, dismissive, like I was the one making trouble. "You want to explain this?" I asked, voice low. She shrugged, like I'd asked where the remote was. "I don't know what you think you found, but it's not. Don't." I stood up. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't even cry. That part of me was gone. Past shock, past hurt, just drained. I went through the messages, Amanda. All of them. From the beginning. My voice stayed calm. You didn't even bother hiding it. The names, the stories, the weekends. I know about the hotel in Boston. I know about the wine bar in Charlotte. I know you weren't with Emily. She moved to Oregon 6 months ago. Still nothing. Just silence. She stepped past me, kicked off her heels, like we weren't even having this conversation. "You know what your problem is?" she said at last, tossing her gloves onto the counter. "You romanticized me. You built me into some perfect fantasy in your head. That hit harder than every lie, every message, every excuse. I gave you everything," I said. "I didn't ask for all of it," she snapped, spinning toward me. "You made this house. You planned every date. You bought me that stupid necklace last year and got all hurt when I didn't wear it. You smothered me. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It was the contempt. The way her voice carried zero regret. The way she looked at me, like I was some clingy admirer she'd outgrown. I stayed for stability," she added matter of fact, "because I knew you'd never leave. I needed time, and you were convenient. Safe." I couldn't answer, couldn't speak. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, splintered beneath me like ice cracking underfoot. And then, just like that, she turned and walked away. Into the bedroom. Closed the door. No apology. No explanation. No fight. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, her phone still warm in my palm, reading every message over and over until the pale light of dawn crept through the blinds. By the time she woke, I'd already been awake for hours. Not really thinking. Not really feeling. Just trapped in the loop. Every fake smile. Every lie. Every skipped dinner. Every excuse that now rang like a cruel joke. She wandered into the kitchen, wearing one of my shirts. She still had the nerve to look relaxed, casual, even, like she hadn't detonated our entire marriage just hours before. No good morning. No glance in my direction. She opened the fridge as if nothing had happened, pulled out the oat milk, poured a glass, and took a slow sip. Mid-drink, she finally looked at me, head tilted, lips curling into that smug little smirk. "You're still mad," she said. No apology. No guilt. Just that infuriating attitude. I stared at her. Really stared. And in that moment, it hit me. I didn't recognize her anymore. Not even a fragment. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't Amanda. This was a cold, calculating stranger wearing her face. Someone who could shatter everything we'd built without flinching. "I want you out," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me. I want you gone, I repeated. I'll stay at my brother's for a few days. But by the weekend, I want you out. Or I file. Amanda scoffed, setting the glass down harder than necessary. Oh, now you're the victim? She sneered. Like you didn't see this coming? Please. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. But it wasn't rage. That had burned out long ago. This was colder, sharper, a quiet, ruthless clarity. I read the whole thread. I said, voice steady. You weren't just sleeping with him. You were planning a life with him. You told him you'd leave me after Denver. You told him you loved him. She rolled her eyes. People say a lot of things in bed. And you told me you weren't sleeping with him. I said. You lied. For months. And you expect me to just what? Move past it. Her tone shifted then, dropping low, cutting. Grow up, Nick. This is real life. Things get boring. People change. Maybe if you weren't so predictable, if you didn't cling to your little routine, I wouldn't have had to find excitement somewhere else. That one landed deeper than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was such an obvious, hollow lie. I'd bent over backwards for us. The dates. The surprises. The quiet support. The space when she pulled away. I had fought for this marriage. And she had checked out and pinned the blame on me. I didn't answer. I just walked out, grabbed my keys, got in the car, sat behind the wheel for 10 long minutes, engine humming, knuckles white against the steering wheel, heart slamming like a war drum. And then I drove. Not to work. Not to my brother's. I drove to the lake. That lake. The one where I'd proposed to her. I parked. Walked to the old dock. Sat down at the edge, feet dangling over the water like some broken cliché. And then I cried. Not loud. Not at first. But deep. Silent. The kind of crying that sneaks up on you. Then wrecks you. The kind that crumples your whole body. Leaves you hollow and shaking. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just the affair. It was the crushing weight of knowing that everything, every plan, every hope, every piece of the life I thought we were building, had been quietly dismantled behind my back. And the worst part? She didn't even regret it. Not 1 ounce. The next morning, she was gone. Not gone as in packed up and left, just physically not there. Her side of the closet still looked like a Nordstrom clearance sale exploded in it. Her perfume still hung in the hallway air. Teddy's leash still dangled from its hook by the door. But her keys were missing. Her laptop bag too. And the car. I didn't care where she went. Not that morning. I just needed to breathe. I called into work, told my boss there was a family emergency. It wasn't a lie. Something had died. My marriage. My identity. My future. That afternoon, I called Rachel. I don't even know why. Maybe I needed someone, anyone, from her world to tell me this wasn't real. That there had to be some other explanation. That Amanda had been drugged, manipulated, possessed, something. But I didn't even get 2 sentences in before Rachel cut me off. Wait, she said. She told me you already knew. That you two were working on it in therapy or something. What? She said it happened once. That you found out months ago. That you forgave her. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, a cold knot twisting so tight in my gut I thought I might throw up. Months ago. Months. So this wasn't new. It wasn't fresh. Amanda had been rewriting our story behind my back, crafting entire versions of our life to hand out like scripts whenever it suited her. She'd lied to her own sister. She'd painted me as the husband who knew, who accepted the affair, who forgave her, just so she wouldn't have to face the judgment. She told you she cheated with one guy? I asked. Rachel hesitated. Yeah, some guy from work. She said it was emotional at first, got physical once. But she ended it. Once. Got physical once. My jaw clenched so hard I tasted blood. She hadn't ended it. She'd escalated it. She'd flown out to see him. Lied about entire business trips. Booked fake meetings on fake calendars. She'd told him she loved him in 6 different cities. Each time in a different bed, under a new lie. I hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Just ended the call and stared at the floor for, I don't even know how long. My ears were ringing. My pulse hammered in my throat. Amanda came home that night like nothing had happened. Carrying sushi. Humming again. She always hummed when she thought the storm had passed. She breezed into the kitchen, unpacking soy sauce packets. I figured you'd want the spicy tuna, she said casually. I talked to Rachel, I said. She froze. Slowly turned. And then, without even blinking, she laughed. A short, sharp laugh, like someone reacting to a joke they didn't respect. Oh, So now you're calling my family, she sneered, slamming the takeout onto the counter. What? Gonna start broadcasting it to everyone. Text my mom. Write a blog. No, I said. I don't need to. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I'd already started. The messages, the photos, the hotel receipts. Every scrap of her double life had been sent to a lawyer I'd hired that morning. A brutal one. The kind who didn't negotiate, just delivered consequences. She stopped laughing. Didn't even breathe. You think you're gonna take half? She asked, voice dropping low. I don't want half, I said. I want out. Clean. And I want the truth to follow you like a shadow. She stepped closer then. Close enough for me to smell that expensive perfume, the one she used to wear for me. Only now, it made my skin crawl. You're pathetic, she whispered. You've always needed to be the victim. This just gave you a reason. No, I said quietly. You gave me a reason. I just finally opened my eyes. And then, she smiled. Not fake. Not forced. A slow, dark smile that chilled me to the bone. You think you know everything, she said softly. But you don't. You've got no idea how deep this goes. Then she turned and walked away. And I stood there, phone in hand, heart thudding, wondering just how much worse this rabbit hole could get. She didn't come home the next night. Not that I was waiting. I didn't even sleep in the bedroom. I stayed in the guest room. The one we always told visitors was just in case, but really used to pile up junk and unfolded laundry. That night, it became my bunker. I didn't touch the bed, didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there, replaying her words over and over. You've got no idea how deep this goes. Because here's the thing. I thought I'd already seen the worst of it. The infidelity, the lies, the gaslighting. I'd already been through the emotional grinder, rage, heartbreak, humiliation. I thought that was the full picture. But I was wrong. The next twist didn't come from her. It came from Chase, my oldest friend. We'd known each other since high school, been through everything together. He was the best man at our wedding. Helped me build the deck in the backyard. Held me up when my dad died. We hadn't talked much lately, mostly because Amanda didn't like him. Said he was immature, toxic, always in our business. I hadn't thought much of it. Amanda had opinions about everyone. But now, with everything crumbling, I called him. Told him everything. And I mean everything. I didn't hold back. I laid it all out. The texts, the other guy, the months of lies, the lawyer. There was a long silence on the line. Then Chase spoke. Nick, I didn't know if I should ever tell you this. My stomach twisted. Tell me what? He hesitated. She came on to me. Silence. I couldn't breathe. This was maybe a year ago, he continued quietly. You were out of town. She showed up at my place with a bottle of wine. Said she needed to talk. I thought it was something serious, and it was. Just not the kind of serious I was ready for. My chest tightened, a sick, hollow pressure spreading beneath my ribs. It felt like I was listening to a horror story unravel in real time. She sat on my couch. Chase said quietly. Told me you were getting boring. That you didn't make her feel wanted. He paused. And then she tried to kiss me. I closed my eyes. I could see it. Her on his couch, maybe pretending to cry, weaving the same sad story she spun for everyone. Pity me. I'm trapped. I'm unfulfilled. I pushed her off. Chase said quickly, like he needed me to hear it before I spiraled. I told her it wasn't happening. That you were my brother. I'd never crossed that line. And I believed him. I really did. Because unlike Amanda, Chase had never once given me a reason not to. But even that, wasn't the worst part. She told me, he continued, his voice low, tired, that if I ever said anything she'd ruin me. Said you'd never believe me. That she'd twist it, make it look like I came on to her. And that was when something inside me snapped for real. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just betrayal. Amanda hadn't stumbled into an affair. She'd been running a campaign. A long, deliberate, systematic effort to isolate me, manipulate the people closest to me, to ensure she always stayed one step ahead of the fallout. She wasn't just a liar. She was a strategist. Every smile, every kiss, every act of affection, it was all part of the performance. Every fight, a distraction. Every time she painted someone as the villain, Chase, her co-workers, even Rachel, it wasn't just spite. It was structural, designed. Every brick laid to keep her empire of lies intact. She hadn't just broken the marriage. She'd engineered its collapse from the inside. And here I was, still standing in the ashes, wondering if I'd been blind, or if I'd simply refused to see. The next day, the lawyer called. Said Amanda had finally responded. She wasn't contesting the divorce. She didn't want a penny. Didn't even ask for the dog. She just wanted it over, quick and quiet. But I wasn't ready to sign. Not yet. I had one more move left. I dug deeper. Sleep wasn't even on the table anymore. Sleep belonged to other people. People with normal lives. Safe relationships. Honest partners. Sleep belonged to the lucky. Not me. Not now. Instead, I sat at the desk, Amanda's old laptop in front of me. I wasn't supposed to have it. She used it for work. Always said it was off limits, wrapped in strict company privacy, said I wouldn't understand all the technical stuff. But now, I didn't care. And she hadn't even locked it. Sloppy. The kind of sloppy that creeps in after years of getting away with everything. At first, it looked clean. Bare desktop. Nearly empty documents folder. But Amanda wasn't careless. If she'd been hiding things, she would have buried them deep. So I went deeper. Hidden folders. Archived emails. A secondary browser. And then I found it. A spreadsheet. Buried inside a folder called Home Budget. Innocuous enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking closely. Inside, tabs. Names. Dates. Cities. Payments. I stared at the screen, unable to move. My heart thudded so loud it drowned everything else. She was paying someone. Multiple someones. The most recent entry. And Denver. $3,500. Nathan. The guy from the texts. $3,500. Labeled consultation. Another. Seattle. $2,000 retainer. And then one that made my blood freeze. Legal prep. $800 hold for potential custody strategy. Rachel. Her own sister. I clicked through more tabs. More notes. More names. Amanda had been building cases. Mapping people's weaknesses. Logging patterns. Tracking every fight we'd ever had. Annotated like a clinical study. She even had an entire section labeled potential leverage. Emotional. I wasn't her husband. I was her project. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd been preparing for war. Before the first affair even started, she'd been planning. Strategizing. Setting every piece in place for a game she was sure I'd never know I was playing. That night, I called the lawyer. Told him to subpoena everything. Her accounts, her travel expenses, her company emails. I wanted it thorough. If Amanda wanted it quiet, I was going to make sure the silence echoed. But the next blow? The most brutal one? It came the following morning. A knock at the door. A courier. Manila envelope. No return address. Inside, just a flash drive. No note. Just the drive. No note. No explanation. Just that single, ominous flash drive. I plugged it in, hands trembling, pulse hammering in my throat. There were 4 videos. All time-stamped from months ago. Shot from a high angle. Too high for a handheld. Maybe a mounted phone. Maybe a hidden GoPro. The angles were perfect. Too perfect. The first one, Amanda. In our kitchen. With Nathan. Laughing. Feeding him something off a spoon. He kissed her. Right there. In the same spot where I used to make her breakfast every Sunday morning. And she laughed. That laugh. The one she used when we slow danced to terrible 2000 songs after too much wine. The one I thought was mine. Each video was worse than the last. Different rooms. Different days. Different cities. Amanda in control every single time. She wasn't just cheating. She was documenting it. Saving it. Like trophies. And suddenly, it clicked. She sent it. Amanda sent the drive. Not out of remorse. Not guilt. But as a warning. A taunt. Her way of saying, I'm 10 steps ahead, Nick. Always was. Always will be. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen as the drive spun quietly. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about finishing the game she'd started. And this time, I wasn't playing defense. It was war now. No more grieving. No more crying in the shower while the dog looked at me with confused, sad eyes, wondering why the house felt colder. Amanda had escalated. She'd turned this into psychological warfare. A game she thought she'd already won. But she underestimated me. She always had. The first thing I did? Forwarded every file from that drive to my lawyer. Every video. Every spreadsheet. Every sick little note she'd written about my habits. Nick likes to wait 3 to 5 days after fights to initiate reconciliation. Predictable. Predictable. That one burned. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not directly. That would be giving her exactly what she wanted, a stage. Amanda thrived on confrontation. She knew how to twist every conversation until you left wondering if you were the villain. No, this time I needed leverage. Real leverage. So I dug where it would hurt her most, her job. Amanda worked for a marketing firm. High-profile clients. Political campaigns. Corporate giants. The kind of work where reputation wasn't just important, it was everything. And buried deep in that spreadsheet, names. Names of clients she'd networked with. Payments labeled ambiguously. Client development, private meetings, executive outreach. But the dates and times? They lined up. With hotel receipts. Room service charges. Flights. Amanda hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been playing her clients, too. Leveraging charm for access. Affection for influence. Using people like poker chips in a game she never expected to lose. And it worked. For a while. Until I printed it all out. Compiled it. Packaged it into a neat, quiet little file. Just enough details to raise eyebrows. Just enough to ask questions. I sent it anonymously to her firm's ethics department. No accusations. Just evidence. Within 3 days, she was suspended. Within 5, Rachel showed up at my apartment. Eyes puffy, voice trembling. "She's unraveling." "Nick," Rachel whispered, glancing over her shoulder like Amanda might appear any second. "She thinks you hacked her. She's accusing everyone. She smashed her phone in my kitchen." Good. Let her crack. But even I wasn't prepared for what came next. The next night, I got an email. No name. No subject line. Just an attachment. An audio file. I clicked play. Amanda's voice. She was crying. Not sobbing. More like breathing hard. Caught somewhere between rage and despair. I heard wine being poured. A glass clinked down. And then her voice. Low and shaky. "He's not supposed to be like this. He was supposed to break. He was supposed to crumble and beg. That's what they always do. What is he doing? Why won't he just fall apart like he's meant to? Why won't he stay broken?" I paused the recording, stared at the screen, and I realized I'd already won. Not because she lost her job, not because her carefully constructed world was collapsing around her, but because she couldn't understand me anymore. Because I didn't break the way she expected. I didn't play the victim. I didn't beg. I didn't scream. I didn't chase after her like some wounded, desperate animal. I watched her destroy herself. And that was the move she never saw coming. She used to call me steady, safe, her rock. What she never understood was that rocks don't move. They don't chase. They wait. And eventually, everything around them crashes. The voicemail was the turning point. I played it once, then again, then a third time. Each listened sharper, colder, more detached. Amanda unraveling. Amanda losing control. Amanda finally hearing the echoes of everything she'd broken and realizing, this time, no one was picking up the pieces for her. But I knew her too well. She wasn't done. She never went down without taking a piece of someone with her. And I was right. The next day, I got a call from HR. "Nick, we received a complaint," my manager said, voice tight. "It's serious." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart already sinking like a stone. What kind of complaint? A formal report was filed. Anonymous, but specific. A pause. Allegations of inappropriate conduct with a subordinate. Favoritism. Misuse of company time. A vindictive fabrication. Amanda had gone scorched earth. Couldn't win in the marriage. Couldn't stop the divorce. Couldn't keep her job. So now she was trying to burn down everything else. My name. My livelihood. I stayed calm. Asked questions. Took notes. Then I hung up and called the one person who mattered more in that moment than any lawyer or friend. Emily. Not the fake Emily Amanda claimed she hung out with during her girls' nights. The real Emily, my coworker. The one Amanda named in the HR complaint. When Emily answered, she was already livid. "I got dragged into a conference room over some made-up rumor that you and I were what? Sleeping together? That I got promoted because of it. Are you kidding me?" I told her everything. The affair. The fallout. The spreadsheet. The anonymous attacks. Amanda's unraveling spiral of retaliation. Emily didn't even hesitate. "I'll go on record," she said fiercely. "I'll tell them she's targeting you." So I called HR back. Calm. Clear. I offered to give access to every email, every calendar entry. Anything they needed to prove I'd never even had lunch alone with Emily. By the next day, the complaint was dropped. But the damage Amanda wanted to inflict? It wasn't meant to stick. It was a warning shot. A sign. She was panicking. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one sentence. "You want to keep pushing this, Nick? You'll find out who I really am." No name. No sign-off. But I didn't need one. I already knew. And for the first time since this hell began, I laughed. Out loud. Alone in the apartment that still smelled faintly of her perfume. Sitting in the living room, staring at the wall she'd picked the paint for. I laughed because this was her final card. Threats. Amanda, the queen of control. The manipulator. The planner. She was officially backed into a corner. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing the image. The reputation. The perfect narrative where she got to walk away from a dull marriage into the arms of someone who understood her. But the cracks were everywhere now. Her job? Gone. Her lies? Shredded. Her fallback story? Collapsing. So she tried to smear me. And when that failed, she tried to scare me. But what Amanda didn't realize, what she still hadn't understood, was that when someone's already taken everything from you, you stop being afraid. She should have known better. She should have stopped while there was still anything left to save. It was Friday afternoon when I got the call from my neighbor, Mrs. Ledbetter. Sweet old lady, always trimming her hedges, always handing out stale lemon bars at Christmas. She never called me. Ever. "Nick, dear," she said, her voice trembling, nervous. I think you need to come outside. I hate to get in the middle of something that isn't mine, but..." Mrs. Ledbetter hesitated, her voice small, trembling. "What is it?" I asked, already bracing for the blow. "Well, Amanda was here. On your porch." I froze. "For over an hour," she continued, nervous. I think she was waiting. Or maybe snooping. I saw her looking in the windows. And her voice dropped lower. "At one point, I swear I saw her take something from your mailbox." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. She still had a key. One I'd meant to replace weeks ago, but hadn't. Because in the chaos of everything else, I thought, why would she even come back? I underestimated her. Again, I drove home. Fast. Every red light stretched like a warning, every turn heavy with dread. My gut flipped over and over, a voice inside me screaming that whatever I was about to walk into wasn't just another stunt. This was escalation. The final stretch. When I pulled into the driveway, the front door was locked. But something felt wrong. You know that feeling when the air in a room is too still? Too heavy? That's what hit me the second I stepped inside. Teddy didn't come running. He wasn't barking at the door. He wasn't wagging his tail. He was cowering, hunched beneath the table, trembling. My pulse spiked. "Teddy," I whispered. He whimpered, refused to come out. And that's when I saw it. The living room was spotless. Too spotless. Amanda was never tidy when she lived here. But now, every cushion fluffed. The carpet freshly vacuumed. My photos rearranged. And on the kitchen counter, right where she used to leave grocery lists, a note. Her handwriting. "We could have fixed it. You're just too weak to try." Beside it, a USB stick. Again, I didn't touch it at first. I just stood there, staring at it, feeling the weight of what she'd done settle on me like wet concrete. She hadn't just broken into my house. She'd nested. She'd tried to rewrite reality again. Clean the mess. Reset the stage. Leave a message that made her the martyr and me the coward. Same game. Same manipulation. Only now, she was running out of audience. I picked up the USB. Didn't even plug it in. Took it straight to my lawyer. No detours. No previews. He called me the next morning. "You need to sit down," he said. I sat. "It's surveillance," he said carefully. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Footage," he said grimly. "Of you. Inside your house." My throat went dry. "From when?" "Months ago. She installed cameras, Nick." A pause. "Living room. Kitchen. Bedroom." I felt the blood drain from my face. "She's been watching you," he said. "Recording you. Monitoring you. For months." And I went cold. Every night I thought I was alone. Every time I'd pace the floor, talking to myself. Every breakdown. Every phone call. Every private, shattered moment. She had it all. On tape. Not to remember me. Not for love. She was building ammunition. Like always. Every gesture. Every word. Every vulnerable second of my life. Weaponized. My lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. "This isn't just unethical. It's illegal. We're filing for a full protection order. Police involvement. This is done." And for the first time it really was. Because Amanda had crossed the one line she couldn't blur. She invaded my home. She invaded me. I signed the order. Sent the documents. changed every lock, wiped every device, hired professionals to sweep the house for bugs. And that night, I sat on the same couch where I used to hold her and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not because it was over, but because she'd finally made it impossible to come back. The cops showed up at her door 2 days later. No sirens, no handcuffs, just a knock, a badge, and a list of charges Amanda couldn't charm her way out of. Unlawful surveillance, trespassing, harassment, possession of private recordings without consent. She didn't get arrested yet, but she got served. And according to the officer who followed up with me, she didn't take it well. Apparently, she accused me of staging everything, called me a manipulative fake, threatened to expose the truth about me, whatever that meant. But her voice? It didn't carry the same weight anymore. Not with the law watching. Not with a lawyer who now held a thick folder of evidence. Pages and pages detailing her months of deception, obsession, psychological warfare. And not with me, finally untangled from her web. But Amanda? She wasn't the type to disappear. No, that wasn't her style. 2 nights later, I got another email. This time, from Nathan. Subject line, "You should have walked away." It was short. Cold. "You win. She's out of control. She showed up at my job. Said she was pregnant. Then said she wasn't. Then told me you hit her. I'm done. I don't want any part of this. She needs help. Whatever she's about to do next, just be ready." I stared at the message. Pregnant. Not pregnant. Accusing me of violence. The whiplash was so hard it made me dizzy. But I knew this wasn't about love anymore. Or revenge. Or even damage control. Amanda was spiraling into a place even she couldn't navigate. No more spreadsheets. No more master plans. Just desperation. Wild, messy, untethered desperation. The next day, she showed up at my workplace. In the lobby. Wearing white. White. Like she was attending some twisted, delusional wedding only she could see. Security called me before I even laid eyes on her. "There's a woman here," they said, hesitant. "She says she's your wife. Says she has something important to tell you." I didn't go down. I told them to have her removed. Quietly. No drama. Just out. As they walked her out, she screamed. Not at them. Not at me. Just into the building. "He thinks he won. He thinks this is over. But he doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything." And she was right about one thing. I didn't know her. Not the real her. The Amanda I loved? She was never real. Just a mask. A role. A performance she kept up long enough to get comfortable, to feel untouchable. The Amanda I married was fiction. This Amanda, the unraveling, raging, threatening Amanda, this was the real one. The one she hid behind late-night business trips and fake smiles and borrowed tenderness. And now, with every safety net gone, she was exposed. Seen. And it was killing her. Later that evening, Rachel called again. "She's gone," Rachel whispered. "Nick," she vanished. No calls. No texts. No social media. Her apartment? Dark. Car missing. "I think she's trying to disappear," Rachel said quietly. Like, reinvent herself. Start over somewhere new. Leave all of this behind. And part of me hoped that was true. Because the other part, the darker part, knew exactly what Amanda was capable of when she felt cornered. I didn't sleep that night either. I just sat by the window, staring at the street. Waiting. Not out of fear. Not anymore. But because I needed to know that the ghost I married wasn't going to haunt me forever. The end didn't come the way I expected. No dramatic return. No final scream. No scorched earth goodbye. Just silence. Amanda vanished. Gone like she'd never existed. No trace. No closure. Her phone? Disconnected. Her social media? Erased. Her apartment? Abandoned. She left behind bills. Furniture. A half-unpaid lease. And a trail of broken mirrors she never bothered to clean. And yet, somehow, she still managed to take something with her. Noise. Because even in her absence, she echoed. In little things. Commercials we used to joke about. Songs I couldn't listen to anymore. Restaurants I avoided. Not because I hated them, but because I remembered how she used to twirl her noodles around her fork and hum like she was the star of some romantic comedy. But the difference now? I didn't chase those echoes anymore. I let them come. Let them pass. And I moved. Literally. I gave up the apartment a week after she disappeared. Packed what I wanted. Donated what I didn't. Left that chapter boxed up for someone else to unpack. Teddy came with me, of course. He was the one part of that life I couldn't give up. And somehow, I think he understood. He stopped sleeping by the door, stopped flinching at shadows. It was like he exhaled the second we left. I stayed with my brother for a while, slept on his pullout, watched dumb movies, started laughing again. Real laughing. The kind that sneaks up on you, that catches in your chest and feels warm instead of heavy. Chase dropped by with beers and no pity. Emily got a new job. Sent me a photo the day she hung her nameplate on her office door. My lawyer finalized the paperwork with one last email. It's done. And just like that, I was free. Not just legally, but mentally. Amanda didn't break me. She bent me, twisted me, gaslit me until I couldn't recognize my own reflection. But she didn't win. Because the worst people in this world don't come in like villains. They come in wearing love, wearing promises, wearing faces that feel familiar until they don't. But the moment you see them clearly, they lose. You win by walking away with your soul intact. You win by still knowing how to love, even after they made it feel like a trap. You win by refusing to become like them. So here I am, a little older, a lot wiser, free. And if I could give anyone going through something like this one piece of advice, it would be this. Trust your gut. The moment you start making excuses for someone else's cruelty, you've already lost your voice. Don't wait for the proof to become undeniable. Don't wait for them to take everything and call it love. Walk, even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. Because the pain, that's temporary. But who you become after, that's permanent. And as for Amanda, wherever she is now, whatever version of herself she's pretending to be, she'll never outrun the truth. She may have vanished from my life, but I'm the one who disappeared from her control. And that's how it ends.